2:14 a.m. local time. 4 F-35I stealth fighters of the Israeli Air Force, IAF, maintain a cruising altitude of 25,000 feet, carving a silent flight path through the night sky above the Zagros Mountains. Beneath their fuselages, the internal weapon bay doors snap open in an instant. The Israeli squadron is executing a tactical decision that contradicts every principle of precision lethality. They are intentionally missing their targets. A volley of GBU-3-1V3 JDAM penetrators falls into the void, impacting the empty limestone cliffs surrounding the suspected facility. 120 meters below the solid granite shelf, inside the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps IRGC command center, the commander allows a thin smirk to form as the dull, muffled thuds of collapsing rock resonate through the cavern walls. To the sensors on the surface, Tel Aviv's intelligence had apparently failed. From the Iranian perspective, the coalition was simply wasting millions of dollars bombarding geological ghosts. But the reality of modern warfare is far more calculated than mere explosions. The Israeli squadron didn't fly thousands of miles for simple destruction. They were solving a geological equation known as seismic ringing. Tons of kinetic energy hammer into the limestone foundation, transforming the entire valley structure into a giant tuning fork. Mechanical microsystems radiate deep into the earth, bypassing concrete armor and violently rattling the hypersensitive water cooling system of the subterranean nuclear reactor. The reactor's safety sensors are immediately deceived by the mathematical shift. A false, overheating warning flashes crimson across control displays. Before human operators can intervene, the core's safety AI automatically triggers an emergency pressure relief protocol to prevent a meltdown that doesn't exist. From perfectly camouflaged vents atop the mountain, an invisible cloud of superheated gas, saturated with uranium-235 isotope particulates, erupts into the freezing night sky. The underground game of hide-and-seek ends in that precise second. Loitering silently in the stratosphere, an American RQ-180 stealth drone sniffs the exhaust plume, isolating the radioactive signature in milliseconds. Coordinates accurate to the millimeter are fed directly into the global kill web. The tactical architectures of the U.S. and Israel are now officially in sync. You cannot be poisoned if you hold your breath. The Pentagon understands this biological absolute. Israel didn't waste bombs trying to blindly find a hidden reactor. They used pure kinetic energy to choke the mountain by the throat, forcing it to violently gasp for air. The trap has snapped shut. 120 meters beneath the solid granite shelf, the IRGC commander's eyes are locked onto the cooling system display. A single line of red text has just appeared. Ventilation valve 4, open, failsafe activated. In that millisecond, the tactical logic of the battlefield is laid bare. Israel's missed bombs were not intelligence failures. They were a deliberate pressure probe. The enemy had forced the mountain to cough out a uranium isotope signature. The top secret coordinates have been decrypted. The commander does not order the activation of fire control radars, an act that would be a death sentence against American anti-radiation missiles. Instead, he issued a single directive: activate protocol SIA, Black Cloud. On the surface, 3 composite camouflaged cliff faces suddenly collapse, revealing transporter erector launchers in a high state of readiness. The solid fuel engines of 8 Fateh 110 tactical ballistic missiles ignite, screaming through the silent night of the Zagros Range. However, rather than following a parabolic trajectory toward Israel or U.S. carrier strike groups, they climb vertically, perpendicular to the mountain peak. At a precise altitude of 15,000 feet, where the atmospheric density begins to thin, barometric fuses trigger in synchronization. Thud, thud, thud. There are no brilliant orange fireballs of fragmentation explosives. Instead, the warheads burst via low-pressure release, dispersing billions of aerosolized carbon fibers, aluminum powder, and multispectral chaff. Within 90 seconds, a pitch-black cloud, shimmering with magnetic radiation and covering over 4 square miles, forms and hovers directly above the reactor site. This is not a visual smokescreen. It is an electromagnetic shroud. For the high-altitude B-2 Spirit bombers approaching the zone, this cloud is a mechanical nightmare. If a B-2 attempts to descend through this layer, the superconductive carbon fibers will be sucked into the jet engine intakes, causing immediate, widespread short circuits in electronic control systems, and physically scouring the sensitive radar-absorbent material RAM coating. Simultaneously, the cloud acts as a ground-level lens, refracting and completely absorbing L-band signals from the GPS satellite constellation. Any smart bomb falling into this airspace will find its guidance algorithm saturated by white noise, rendering millimeter precision into a meaningless variable. Iran has demonstrated that they are not trying to shoot down the Pentagon's Stealth Eagle. They have simply thrown a handful of superconducting carbon sand directly into its electronic retina. This is the masterstroke of blind calculus. In the era of sensor fusion, if you cannot destroy the enemy, you make the tactical environment around them impossible to compute. The Mountain now wears a new layer of armor, not built from reinforced concrete, but from the turbulence of the electromagnetic spectrum. High above the electromagnetic shroud, Iranian air defense units pivoted their strategy. Recognizing that active radar would be instantly hunted by American anti-radiation missiles, they activated next-generation electro-optical, infrared EO, reconnaissance systems. These digital eyes scanned the night sky in silence, waiting for the faintest thermal bloom from American jet engines to establish a passive firing solution. However, the Pentagon had no intention of penetrating this environment with conventional stealth. They decided to use overwhelming luminous intensity. From an altitude of 45,000 feet, well beyond the reach of the carbon cloud, a B-52H Stratofortress opened its massive bomb bay. Instead of heavy, high explosives, it began carpet-dropping 500 LUU, two high-intensity parachute flares. In an instant, the night sky over the Zagros Range vanished, replaced by a light source equivalent to hundreds of artificial suns burning at 2,000 degrees Celsius. Billions upon billions of photons were released simultaneously, drenching the valley in an unquantifiable density of light energy. On the ground, the displays of Iranian air defense operators designed to amplify weak heat signatures were immediately hit by optical saturation. The sensitive focal plane arrays are overwhelmed by photon bombardment, causing terminal pixel burnout and reducing the tactical display to a featureless white void. The Mountain, once a hidden fortress, was now electro-optically blinded. Exploiting this window of blindness, the second variable of the equation was activated. Bypassing the hovering carbon cloud by flying at nap-of-the-earth levels, a strike package of F-35I and F-15I RAAMs from the Israeli Air Force began their ingress. The pilots executed terrain masking at an altitude of just 300 feet, utilizing the vertical canyon walls to shield their engine noise and any residual radar reflections. At the coordinates previously established by the RQ-180 drone, the Israeli formation performed a decisive pop-up maneuver. At the apex of their trajectory, they released 4 GBU, 2 8-bunker buster penetrators. These 5,000-pound hardened steel masses, forged from repurposed 8-inch howitzer barrels, plummeted with absolute geometric calculation. In the language of kinetic geometry, a surface explosion would be a lethal error. To clear the path for the final blow, the Mountain's spaced armor layers of loose soil and fractured limestone acting as a shock-absorbing buffer had to be removed. The GBU-28S did not detonate upon impact. Their hardened steel noses bored through 20 meters of surface rock before the delayed fuses triggered. The result was not a towering fireball, but a massive subterranean mass displacement. Thousands of tons of rubble and debris were pulverized and ejected, leaving behind a perfect crater bored straight into the Mountain's primordial granite core. The spaced armor was stripped away, revealing a solid anchor for the American sledgehammer to drive home into the enemy's throat. The American B-52 used light to nail the enemy's eyelids open. Simultaneously, the Israeli F-35Is acted as a dentist's pilot drill, mercilessly grinding away the decayed enamel to expose the root for the final extraction surgery. The $2 billion B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, call sign Death 11, glides silently above the dense pitch-black carbon cloud. Inside the radar-absorbent cockpit, the navigation console suddenly flashes amber with a critical warning. GPS, signal lost, weapon degraded. Iran's friction cloud has achieved its primary objective, neutralizing the satellite data stream. The massive GBU-57 MOP, the world's most powerful subterranean weapon, now faces the risk of becoming a redundant mass of steel if its trajectory deviates by even a few meters. However, the Pentagon never stakes a mission on a single variable. While Death 11 flies blind above the shroud, The coalition's eye remains open below it. An Israeli F-35I Adir stealth fighter executes tight orbits precisely along the mountain face. Optical targeting system, slaving an invisible, high-intensity laser beam directly onto the floor of the funnel previously excavated by the F-15I wing. Sensor fusion protocols engage at the highest tier. The F-35I's mission computer immediately interpolates target coordinates by cross-referencing laser ranging data with its internal inertial navigation system. This data is encoded into a high-frequency data link burst, projected upward through the carbon interference to feed directly into the B-2's electronic brain. The GPS margin of error is neutralized by this cross-compensated algorithm. Death 11 now sees the target through the eyes of the Adir. The B-2's weapon base cycles open with a dry, mechanical hiss. The first 30,000-pound GBU, 57AB MOP slides from its shackle, beginning a descent of pre-calculated finality. Phase 1. Piercing the crystalline lattice. The massive steel alloy casing plummets at supersonic speeds, shredding the carbon cloud like an arrow through silk. Guided by the INS updates from the F-35, the ordnance impacts the exact geometric center of the pre-excavated pilot hole. There is no immediate surface explosion. Instead, there is the terrifying resonance of 15 tons of hardened steel chewing through 60 meters of high-density granite. Only when the nose reaches its load-bearing limit does the AFX-757 explosive charge trigger. The detonation is not directed upward. It generates a seismic shockwave that shatters the crystalline bonds of the mountain, transforming solid granite into a fractured vertical conduit. Phase 2. The final cut. Exactly 4.5 seconds later, while the debris from the first strike is still swirling, the second B-2 releases MOP number 2. In a miracle of aerodynamics and guidance mathematics, the second bomb dives directly into the same smoking crater. Exploiting the low-pressure zone and the catastrophically weakened rock structure, it bores through the mountain's core like a needle through butter. It bypasses the 60-meter mark of the previous strike and dives another 60 meters deeper into the mountain's heart. A sickening metallic crack echoes through the seismic sensors as the depleted uranium nose punches through the 2-meter-thick reinforced steel dome of the underground laboratory. The reactor core is officially exposed. The main fuse initiates its final millisecond countdown for the facility's existence. Across the darkness of a choked electromagnetic spectrum, the Israeli fighter's laser eye acted as the needle bearer, while the American bomber's massive ordnance served as the steel thread. The coalition precisely threaded that needle from an altitude of 40,000 feet, performing a radical extraction without so much as a blink. As the second GBU, 57 detonates at a depth of 120 meters, tens of thousands of tons of fractured granite collapse instantly, hermetically sealing the vertical entry conduit. In the uncompromising realm of thermodynamics, near-infinite pressure seeks the path of least resistance. With no upward escape, the supersonic shockwave and its 1,000-degree thermal payload are forced horizontally through the facility's narrow tunnel network. 3 miles away, at camouflaged secondary exits, sentries witness the impossible, screaming blue fire jets erupting from the mountain like the exhaust of a heavy-lift rocket. The entire facility has been mathematically transformed into a gargantuan internal combustion cylinder. The detonation acts as a clinical piston, compressing every biological and mechanical entity into ash. Tehran spent decades drilling a shield. Tonight, they realized a mountain is not a fortress. It is merely a pressure vessel waiting for its lid to be locked. If you want to continue following the strategic strikes of Operation Epic Fury, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Goodbye.